Gerhard Papenfus, Chief Executive of NEASA. Good to have you in studio. Big news at the moment about mandatory vaccines and people being fired because they refuse to be vaccinated. Standard Bank's in the news. Joe Kokela, do you know him from SASBO?
No, but I've seen it this morning.
Yeah, it's certainly the news reports, and he has appeared on television as well to say that there were 40 people, at least 40 people, who work for Standard Bank, who are members of SASBO, the union, who've actually been dismissed, and then others who've been suspended because they wouldn't be vaccinated. Now, the bank has been stum on all of this. I know you've been pretty vocal on the whole vaccination story. What do you think about this story?
It makes no sense that some of these institutions persist with this policy. It just makes no sense.
They say it's a matter of principle.
Well, what principle? Look, there was a point where there was uncertainty. Now, I respect, first of all, the position is freedom of choice. Make your decision and live with it. That's fine. NEASA really got involved in the debate when the mandates were introduced, and we said don't do it. Now, we did it for various reasons. Sorry, I'm giving a bit of history.
No,
here.
good.
We did it for various reasons. It's also to protect business, because the onus was put on business to do it. Parliament doesn't make the decision. Now, in terms of a law of general application, you can discriminate against a person. There's one piece of legislation where you can discriminate. That's the Employment Equity Act. You can discriminate against a person on the basis of his color of his skin, but that's a law that went through Parliament. It said for the purposes of transformation, you may discriminate, and that's fair discrimination. What's happened in this case, you may now, in terms of a code, discriminate, but it's left for the employer to make that decision.
This is interesting. So we understand employment equity, and what you think about it or not, that's in the law.
It's in the law.
But
through
now
Parliament.
Here's another discriminatory issue, which presumably could lead to others as well.
Well, and who's making that call? Who's discriminating? The employer. A citizen discriminates against another person on the basis of a call that you make.
Standard Bank's a big organization. They've got a big legal team. Surely they must have thought this one through.
You know what? I've learned one thing. The fact that guys are big and important doesn't cause them to make wise decisions. People say, when we going back to the 2008 financial crisis, and you listen to what's happening there. Guys were saying when there were signs of the markets failing, people say, but the banks aren't that stupid. They weren't going to do that. And we look up to people and we think, you can't be that stupid. But I'm telling you, they are that stupid, because more and more people realize that, and I'm talking about big business now, has realized, no, we're suspending this, and when you can go through the list. There's a few that's persisting with this, and I don't know why.
When you say they're suspending, just unpack that for us, because at one point in time, it seemed right in South Africa anyway, to be vaccinated. I know you've got your point of view, but to be vaccinated because then you wouldn't put other people at risk if you're in the workplace. Yeah. So we'll put that one side.
We're not arguing that. Yeah. And I say, well, people have a different view about that. That's fine.
And your view was that, look, I've had COVID. A vaccine's not going to help me anymore, so why must I get vaccinated? Yeah. And I get that. I understand that point of view. But moving on to the companies themselves, you say there are some companies who have recanted?
Yeah, many of them. I mean, we're talking about Standard Bank. Very recently, Old Mutual, days ago, Old Mutual suspended their vaccination policy, mandatory vaccination policy.
So if these employees had worked for Old Mutual, they would not have been fired, or if they'd been fired, they would have been reinstated?
Well, I'm not sure. I've got a meeting with somebody that comes and see me on Friday, and he's also a trade union involved there. And he's just coming to hear my side of my position. I'm not sure whether they did, in fact, dismiss employees. But I think they were in the process going towards, we are going to dismiss, and then they suspended it. But big organized, Dis-Chem has done that. Woolworths has done it. I mean, but strangely enough, and while everybody's suspending this process, Telkom gets onto the bandwagon, but that's typically Telkom.
Tell me about that.
Telkom has introduced mandatory vaccinations a while ago, very recently. When others are suspending it, Telkom says, we are going to introduce this policy. But it just doesn't make sense. The minister, and we are in court on this issue. We are in court.
Take us through that.
Well, we filed a case in the High Court about 2 months ago on various grounds, and the minister came back, and we won that case already because the minister came back.
Minister of
Labour, and he said he agrees that this code was introduced in terms of the wrong section in the Act. Now, that's very technical because we said, no, you can't do that in terms of that. And people say, but that's not important because it's just technical. Well, there's various other elements that we addresses, but you can't skip the technical one. I mean, that's the first win. So the minister came back and said, it was a mistake. We withdraw. We will withdraw it because it was clearly wrong. And then NEDLAC introduced the new code a few days later. I'm talking about 3-4 days later. NEDLAC says, okay, here's a new code. So we're back in court.
Is this all to do with COVID?
Yeah.
But COVID is over.
And the mandate.
We're back in the rugby. Everybody's in the stadiums watching rugby. What is going on now?
You're touching on the importance of this issue. So we're back. Why are we back in the court? And an employer. So NEDLAC has introduced the latest one. So that is another technical issue. We ask NEDLAC now, how did you get to this conclusion in a matter of days? Just show us, how did you make your decision? The minister has said, Prime Minister of Health has said, there's no longer a public health issue. So you say, if you go to the rugby and you sit close to somebody else, standing up, shouting, go to a shop, stand in a queue, do whatever you want, there's no health risk. But the moment you enter a workplace, all of a sudden there's a health risk. Now, goodness, Alex, I can't see a health risk in your place. I mean, I was at the rugby last week. This is what we're doing. And so how do you justify there's no general health risk, but there's a health risk in the workplace?
Is this the lawyers getting rich? Is the lawyer... I'm trying to work out why these cases would continue. Surely our courts are overburdened with criminals. We can't put the criminals behind bars. But there are some lawyers earning lots of money on matters of principle, but the principle's over because COVID's over. Help me a bietjie hierso.
Well, what is driving this whole thing? What's been driving this thing from the start? What is the money involved in this? What is the money involved in this? I mean, you are one of the very few journalists that is prepared to debate this issue. I recently had a debate with Discovery on the issue, and they raised a lot of issues on this issue, and I came back to them and I said, I invite you now to a formal debate on these issues. No, they're not coming back. They don't want to do that. How do you justify it? Well, if it wasn't for that, NEASA would not have been in court because this whole thing is over. It doesn't exist. But we are in court because employees lose their jobs. because of the stupidity of employers. And we've told employers on this issue, if you do this, we're not standing with you. We protect business. But we've also told business, at a particular point, you will come back and thank us that we protected you. We advise you not to do it. But they're still persisting with it. So why is it? What is the money? Say follow
the motivation?
What is the motivation behind it? Why will Telkom at this point come into the fray and say, from now on, Telkom is in? Goodness, the thing is over.
Is it just because perhaps they're so incompetent and so inefficient that it's taken them months and months to finally get a policy made? Now they're going to push it through.
By the time they get to the point where we make the decision, the danger is over.
But this is scary for South Africa. If South African business can do this, how can they compete globally?
That it makes no sense. The danger is over. And the fact is, this current code makes it puts an obligation on a business to do a risk analysis, where the business must justify why he doesn't want to introduce the mandatory vaccination. Now, we've done that. And we go into business and say, listen, don't do it. It's frankly impossible to do it. You can't do it. How can you as a businessman make that call? You'll have to get a health and safety expert in, and not a normal health, a special type of health and safety expert to justify why you don't want to introduce mandatory vaccination. So this whole drive is dead. We advise business, don't do it. And if the Department of Labour comes in and they can come in and say, show us your risk analysis, refer them to us. Because it's a joke. You can't do it. We cannot. We could have made a lot of money out of this. We could have gone to business and say, do it.
How can you take it seriously, though? Honestly, on the one hand, what do these guys think? What do the bureaucrats think? I'm just trying to work it out, what's going through their minds. Do they think that the public are idiots? Yeah. That the public don't see through this whole charade where certain people are making money out of doing crazy things that have no meaning whatsoever anymore? And you then go back to an organization like Standard Bank, and are there others like them who are similarly pushing through on a very dead topic?
Yeah, there are still others.
Who do you know? Can
well,
you
Discovery is one, and why
Discovery is still mandating vaccines.
Yeah, they still do that, and I blame a lot of this on Discovery. They took the lead very early, and the world just followed them.
Well, they should know because they're a health company.
Well, again, I don't think they know.
But they got the data, surely.
No. Well, they say they have the data. We tell them, show us the data. Show us the data. And I was in debate with the chief of human resources and the main doctor, and a lawyer from a company that when we engaged in the debate, he said he just want to tell me his partner in the third biggest law company in the world. And I thought, well, this is going to be tough. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's nothing there.
What do you mean there's nothing there?
Well, they say the general thing. They say they refer to the science. Now, SAPRA. I'm carrying the legal costs for the lawyer. It's also our lawyer in a case against SAPRA on the vaccination of children. South African health professional. The guys that made the decision on ivermectin and this thing. This SAPRA, South African.
Anyway, we know who you're talking about.
So the question to SAPRA is, show us on what basis did you make these decisions? And unfortunately, there's nothing there. Show us the stuff. Give us.
What was the logic or the rationale, in other words? And you say
they relied on what the FDA did in the United States.
So somebody made a decision, and you just repeated what the FDA.
But you can't do that. You can't sit here and say they've done it, so we must do it. Said, no, you must make a call. But tell us on what basis, what piece of document of the FDA or the CDC did you rely on making a decision to vaccinate a child? and there's nothing. Give it to us.
Gerhard, are you going to drop this whole thing now, or are you going to continue?
No, I've got to continue. I've got to finish.
Why?
People are losing their jobs. Employees are losing their jobs. When people interfere with the freedom of a nation, you've got to stop it, because if you allow it on one occasion, we as the citizenry must protect our own freedom. We must fight for it. That's what that's what democracy is about. If you don't like it, what people are doing, then you must go against them. And that saves the country. The citizenry must fight. And our freedom is so important. And what's happening all over the world is a serious curtailment of freedom in New Zealand, in Australia, in Canada, in the United States. And this is a country where things go severely wrong at this stage. We can't allow it to happen here. So this is why I'm there. If it is on the books, they are still allowing business to continue with this. And as we speak today, there are employees that are losing their jobs.
I'm sure you followed the CCMA Senior Commissioner Richard Burns' ruling, where he said that this is unlawful.
Yeah.
Workplace vaccinations are unlawful. So now, let me just join the dots quickly to close off with. This was applied by businesses on the code that the government had, or government recommendation, moral suasion, if you like. There's no law that says you have to vaccinate, otherwise you can't go into the workplace. So businesses have applied this principle. They have fired people on it. The CCMA, a senior commissioner, has said it's illegal to fire them, and yet they're persisting. You've got to wonder what the rationale is here, or when someone's going to finally sober up the group of people who are making these kind of decisions, because it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Well, on the CCMA judgment doesn't create precedent. So each commissioner can make his own call.
So another one could say it is lawful.
Absolutely.
But surely they'd have to give a basis on why.
Well, of course. But what happened in this case is that, the employee that's fired doesn't have money. They don't have money for counsel. And so they go with poor cases. They went with poor cases, and the consultants try here and there, and they made a mess of it. And so it was easy for commissioners to find against these employees. But in this particular case, it was a senior commissioner, and there was counsel involved, properly argued, and the case went for the employees, for the employee. And there's another case as well. So we need to get this thing into the High Court, and if need be, this thing has got to go to the Constitutional Court, because here we have an opportunity. Now, what happened is that why didn't NEASA enter into this the fray of legal action long ago? We couldn't. I cannot bring a case on behalf of an employee. I mean, our constituency is business. The last code, the minister said business must do certain things. Business need to draft a code. And the moment the minister said business must do, I said, okay, here I'm in.
So that opened the door for you.
That opened the door for me to get involved. I couldn't go before.
So you would go as far as the Constitutional Court?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Gerhard Papenfus, the Chief Executive of NEASA. I'm Alec Hogg from biznews.com.